You know what I wanted to ask you, man, and you mentioned his name a couple times during the course of this interview, Vinnie Vincent.
Mm-hmm.
I got to tell you, when I did an interview with him, which was the first thing he did
Yeah, I heard that.
a few months ago,
Mm-hmm.
and he was very late to the interview, and I was very rushed, and I did not nearly have the time that I expected and was
Right.
told I would have to kind of pull things apart and get into it. It was very much like up against the end of the show, and it was
Right.
not what I wanted to do. But one of the things in retrospect, listening to that interview, that a lot of people have pointed out to me is the one he was in a mode, and that was the first. He's done some interviews since, but that was the first thing he did in whatever 20 years.
That's correct. More, yeah.
More. And he was at that time in a mode of like love and forgiveness of everybody,
Right.
Even Gene and Paul. The
Right.
lawsuits, just Jeannie and Paul. Before he didn't say it by name, but he said the one guy he seemed to have an issue with was you
And Paul, yeah.
and Paul. Yeah, Paul, who he called Mean Mr. Mustard.
Yeah, Mean Mr. Mustard. I was going to get a Mean Mustard T-shirt made when I went to see Kiss not too long ago, just to get a smile out of Paul. Look.
What do you think that's about, man? Because I would have loved to have jumped in and said, "Hey, I've known you forever. You're a great guy. What's this about?" But I don't. I didn't have the time, and it took me a second to even process who he was exactly talking about there. But clearly, it was you in retrospect.
Me, yeah.
What is it? Was it because you didn't stay with him? Do you think?
I don't think that Vinny didn't. I don't think he really liked me as the singer from the very beginning, in my opinion. It was actually a last minute thing. They had Alice Cooper tour, and I think it was a month and a half before. Robert said he wasn't going to do it. There was a couple singers that were kind of up for that gig at that point. Basically it came down to me. Mike Varney was working with Rudy Sarzo, and Tony McAlpine and Tommy Aldridge had a group that they were putting together, which is called Driver. And I said to the guys, I go, look, if I'm not going to do this, I'm going to go check it out and go maybe play with Driver or something like that. And then the label said, let's just take the kid. This is, and I was 21 years old at the time. I mean, which is just crazy. So I ended up, going out to L.A., dyeing my hair blonde, teasing it up to the moon, and then, my guitar's back in the stand, and then all of a sudden I'm opening for Alice Cooper, which, going from a guitar player, singer to just a singer was crazy. So I think that a good portion of that is it wasn't what he was expecting for a singer. I think that he has in his mind of the perfect person, but he'll never have that perfection of who he wants to sing. He's just never happy. He's just not happy with anybody that he works with, I think.
Did you,
in my opinion,
well, yeah, I mean, that sounds like a fair assessment, but when you came into that situation, did you sense, I know it ended badly, but was there tension at the start? Did you not feel very welcome at the start?
There was one time, and Bobby spoke about that in his book, and it was one of those things. It was one time we were opening for Alice Cooper, and it was the intro tape was rolling, and Vinny turns to me and said, Mark, you really sounded like garbage last night. If you don't pull it together, you're not going to be in the next record. And then we started. Then we were out on stage. And, there's two different things that people would react to. Some people say, I don't need this. And then there's the fighters who will go out there and say, you know what? And I went out there, and I'm a fighter. So I went out there and performed more, did more, as a singer. And I think that I fought my way through to where Vinny accepted me at some point as a singer on that second record, where he seemed okay during that whole process. He was happy with the record. But in hindsight, again, Robert had his tonality, I had my tonality. It's a different thing. We're two different people. I wish him well, and I've said that over the years, but he's got a problem with me, he's got a problem with Paul, and I really don't care.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant to me. My royalty statements say something totally different than Vinnie Vincent Invasion,
Well, you meaning you don't make any money from that?
Yeah, like, $3 or something. You know what I mean? It's like, in the scope of it all, it's not even worth my time.
What do you think? Why do you think that he? And I know you don't have a relationship with him anymore, and you haven't talked to him in a long time. But why do you think he chose now to just even that interview come up and do signings and try to get out there? Do you think it's just money? You think he just needs money?
I think he needs money, but I think he wants to be accepted. look, in this side of it, he was a guitar player in Kiss. I think that he did help Kiss a lot in that time. But, Gene and Paul always had their thumb on it. They were always in control of steering that boat. I don't think he went in there and said, I'll take the helm. He's not that guy. He had some good songs that I think that those guys said, hey, these are good songs. Let's make it ours. And I think that was really what he brought to the table. But, it's not a talent show. It's about the songs. When you listen to Sirius Radio and you're listening to Hair Nation, for instance, those songs make you feel good because it reminds you of the good times and it reminds you of where you were, and you realize that the music is positive and fun. It's not about, and then this solo for 40 minutes is just amazing.
Right.
It's not about that. As a guitar player, you might be able to take it for a couple of minutes, but the bottom line is it's the songs and the soundtrack of our life. That's a key point with music.
But there's got to be something, and I'm not a psychiatrist, and I'm not trying to get you to be one, but there's got to be something deeper going on with him, because even just in his return back, there's been 3 events, it seems like now, that he has canceled. And even I heard he's done interviews, and he is steadfast, like, how dare you even assume I could cancel this when he's got a history of canceling,
right.
And yet he cancels again.
Right.
So, there's some disconnect going on. I don't know.
It always was, and I think that there's some people in this industry that need people to handle them to events and handle them into to go play a show or to go do that. And I think that when we were out of the band, there was no other records. There wasn't anything else that this guy did. There wasn't any other recordings that I'm aware of that are out there that he saw through. Meanwhile, we're continuing to make music and go out there and play. And, you have to be a certain type of person to want to get up at 3 a.m. and catch a flight and go do another show the next day. You got to love it. It's not just money. You got to love doing it. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it.
And I have a theory, too, and I've seen this a lot with guys, that you never stop making music.
No.
All of us, 90s, lean years, whatever it may have been, everybody, a lot of people still plowed through, figure out a way to make it work. But there's a lot of guys that have checked out and would check out for 20, 15, 25 years. And then all of a sudden, we both know, as you just alluded to with royalties, they start to dry up. They're not what they once were.
Right.
Suddenly you need to get back out there and work. And then you stick your head out there a little bit and you're like, oh, wow, I'm going to get back into it. And then you find out what the business is now, and you have no ability to adapt.
It's work.
It's very hard to dive back
work.
in when you've been on the shelf for 20, 30 years.
That's right. And it's a different dynamic.
Different, totally.
And you don't have, 15 road crew guys. You get in there and you get hands-on and it's about, again, bottom line is it's about entertainment. This is about the entertainment industry, not the talent show.
Yeah.
And I think that, it's about getting the music out there. If it's new music, it should be as good as, if not better than, the music you did before. But the bottom line is I went and saw Paul McCartney in 1995 with Strum, and I remember he played the Wings, he played the Beatles, and he goes, "I got a new one for you," and the whole place sat down, and I thought, wow, this is one of the best songwriters, one of the biggest iconic people in music, and people just sat down.
And there's the reason why Slaughter hasn't made a new record in 20 years.
That's right. And that's it.
Play the hits, fly to the Angels, up all night.
You look at that royalty statement, and you play every single one of those songs and stick to it.
You know what's got the most streaming,
that's
or most
right.
hits,
exactly.
or whatever have you.
We look at those numbers, folks. That's what we do.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. It's always great to see you and talk to you and catch up with you a little bit.
Absolutely.
I should mention, Mark does the music for those that listen to my podcast. A new episode went up today, by the way. With a guy who's walking. No, today's is with Sebastian Bach. Lynch was on last week, but Mark, if you listen to it, Mark does the the whole guitar bit in front of that,
right?
Just playing into Mark's ability as a guitar player without even singing. I appreciate you doing that. You took it upon yourself to send me that music.
Well, if I'm listening to your podcast, it's one of those things. I was listening to the music, and I was like, man, dude, who did your music? It sucks. And you go, that's all I have. It costs money to do it. And I go, I'll give you music. Just take it.
Yeah. So
that way I don't have to listen to this garbage.
So if you listen to the podcast, and you should, you'll hear that open stuff that starts it is all Mark.
Eddie Trunk theme.
Yeah, the Eddie Trunk theme. Absolutely.